Let's dive into the world of Artemisia Gentileschi. Specifically, her painting Judith Beheading Holofernes.
Oh, an excellent choice.
Yeah, it's, I'm really fascinated by this one. We've got some amazing source material papers, analyses, the whole works, and it's clear right off the bat that there's a lot to unpack. But first, I gotta ask, how does a woman in the 17th century, when female artists were pretty much invisible, create such a brutal masterpiece? I mean, it's technically brilliant, but there's got to be more to it.
Right. Well, there's a lot of discussion about the symbolism. I mean, most experts agree that it goes way beyond just the biblical story. Many of them see it as like she's using the canvas to work through something incredibly personal.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. So to get this painting, we really got to get Artemisia herself. So who was she? What's her story?
Well, she was born in Rome in 1593, daughter of Orazio Gentileschi, a well-respected painter.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine growing up surrounded by art, learning the trade, from a young age. But as a woman, roadblocks everywhere. She couldn't even get into the formal art academies.
That's got to be frustrating. But she at least had her father to teach her, right?
Yeah, but even that wasn't straightforward. Orazio hired a colleague, Agostino Tassi, to give her private lessons. And, well, this is where things get really dark. Tassi raped her when she was only 17.
Ugh, it's awful. And then there was that trial. I mean, talk about public scrutiny. She was even tortured just to prove her testimony.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't overstate how deeply this would have scarred her. I mean, many scholars believe this trauma is there in Judith Beheading Holofernes, in the rawness, the violence, the emotion of it.
Yeah, I can see that. But she didn't let this destroy her. Didn't she do something incredible, like just a few years later?
You're thinking of the Accademia. Yeah, in 1616, she became the first woman ever admitted to the Accademia dell'Arti del Disegno in Florence.
Wow, that's breaking some serious barriers.
No kidding. This was major. It meant her talent was undeniable despite, well, everything she'd been through and all the societal barriers.
I'm looking at Judith with new eyes now. It's like, here she is portraying a woman taking brutal action against this powerful man just a few years after her own experience. There's no way that's just coincidence, right?
You got to wonder. The parallels are definitely there.
Yeah.
But, we should actually talk about the painting itself. Have you seen it in person?
I've seen the Uffizi version in Florence, and it's captivating, the way she captures that moment. But the thing that really hit me was how different Artemisia's Judith is from how other artists portrayed her. She's not some dainty victim. She's strong, determined. She's the one in control.
Absolutely. And that's a huge part of what makes Artemisia's work so groundbreaking. I mean, think about it. Most artists at the time, they painted Judith as delicate, hesitant even. Artemisia's like, nope. His Judith is strong, resolute, and she's not afraid of the violence. It's like she's embracing it because it needs to be done.
And there's that detail, the blood spurting from Holofernes' neck. It's so real, almost like an anatomical diagram. It made me think, is there something more going on here than just her skill as a painter?
That's a really good observation. Don't forget, she's living in a time of incredible scientific advancement, right? In fact, she was actually friends with Galileo.
Galileo. Wait, seriously?
Yep, Galileo, the astronomer who revolutionized how we understand the universe.
That's amazing. Okay, so was she influenced by, his scientific ideas?
Potentially. There's a compelling argument to be made there. If you look at the blood in the Uffizi Judith, it spurts in this parabolic arc, the same way Galileo described for projectiles. So it suggests she wasn't just a brilliant artist, but someone with a deep interest in the scientific principles of the world around her.
That just adds another layer to it. It's like, imagine an artist incorporating cutting-edge science into their work. Revolutionary.
Exactly. Pushing boundaries in art and intellect. And remember, this is a woman who wasn't even allowed formal training at an academy. It really shows her thirst for knowledge, her determination.
Okay, so we've got Galileo, but there are two Judith paintings, right? One in Naples, one in Florence. What's up with that?
Ah, good point. So the first one, from around 1612, it's in Naples. It's powerful, definitely. But the Uffizi one, which she finished in 1620, it's considered her masterpiece. The composition is tighter, the drama is more intense, and the details, like that blood we talked about, they're just more refined. Like she revisited the theme, but with even more confidence, more skill.
You can't help but wonder what was going through her head when she painted it, especially that second time. It feels like more than a biblical story, like she's wrestling with something from her own life.
And there's a lot to unpack there. One thing that stands out is the bracelet Judith wears of the Uffizi version. It's got a cameo of Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, and, importantly, chastity.
Oh, interesting. So is this Artemisia, like, identifying with the goddess, trying to reclaim her own sense of power, her purity after what she went through?
It's a thought-provoking idea, and it brings up another question. What about Abra, the maidservant helping Judith? I mean, she's crucial to the scene, and I think it links back to the betrayal Artemisia experienced.
Hold on, tell me more about that.
Well, during the assault, Artemisia was betrayed by another woman who was there. Some scholars think that by painting Abra as young, strong, and actively participating, Artemisia is rewriting that betrayal, showing female solidarity instead.
Wow. That's a powerful interpretation. Like, she's taking this biblical scene and using it to process her own trauma to create a different outcome where women support each other, not, cause harm.
Yeah, exactly. It shows how deeply personal this art is, how it weaves together her life, her struggles. And honestly, we're just scratching the surface here.
I can tell. This is way more than just like an art history lesson. I can't wait to dig into how her work challenged those conventions, those boundaries of the Baroque style.
Oh, yeah. We've got a lot more to uncover about her artistry, about the impact she had.
It's wild, right? I mean, it's one thing to paint a strong woman, but this level of violence in Judith, the brutality, that must have been shocking back then.
Oh, totally. It'd be easy to forget the context.
Yeah.
The artistic conventions of the time, especially for women. We're talking grace, piety, not bloodshed.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking Baroque with all its drama and intensity, but even then, Artemisia stands out.
Oh, for sure. So, the Baroque, it's all about those theatrical compositions, those vibrant colors, the contrast, the light and shadow, and of course, often religious themes. Think Caravaggio, Bernini, Rubens, all masters of capturing like raw emotion.
Right. Big names. Okay, so in this dramatic Baroque world, how does Artemisia, flip the script?
Think about how women were usually portrayed in art back then, often just supporting roles, right? Symbolizing purity, submission, like the Virgin Mary, for example.
Yeah.
But Artemisia's Judith. She's the one with the power, literally.
And it's not just what she's doing, but how Artemisia paints it. All that physicality, the blood, the strain on Judith's face. She's not holding back.
Not at all. It's that directness, that unflinching realism that would have been so unsettling. Like, she's not just telling the story, she's making a statement about female strength, agency. Almost like she's using the tools of the Baroque, that intensity, to turn expectations on their head.
And what about the chiaroscuro? That light and shadow adds so much to the drama.
It's crucial to her style. And it's interesting to compare her to Caravaggio, another chiaroscuro master. They both used it for realism, for emotional impact. But Artemisia, she pushes it further.
How so?
Look how she likes Judith and Abra. The light, it emphasizes their determination, the tension in their muscles as they do this. And then Holofernes, he's in darkness. His power literally diminished.
I never thought about it like that. She's using light to tell the story, highlighting the women, the downfall of this tyrant.
Exactly. It's really masterful. And then there are the technical aspects, the brushwork, the colors, even the pigments she used. They were pretty unusual.
Oh, right. I remember something about that in the sources. What's the deal there?
Well, modern analysis, using X-rays and fluorescence, they've shown she used some pretty high-end pigments in Judith, especially in the Uffizi one, like lapis lazuli, which was, get this, more valuable than gold back then, for that amazing blue in Judith's dress.
So she wasn't just skilled, she had access to the best materials. I guess her patrons knew what they were looking at, invested in her vision.
Exactly. And those patrons included some heavy hitters, like the Medici family in Florence. So despite the roadblocks for women, she built a successful career, got recognition from some of the most powerful art collectors in Italy.
Now that's impressive, where art transcended those limitations. We've talked a lot about Judith, though. What about her other work?
Oh, there's plenty to explore. And those themes we've been discussing, the strong women, often biblical or mythological heroines, they keep popping up, like Susanna and the Elders, where Susanna resists harassment, and Jael and Sisera, another story of a woman taking down a powerful man.
So it's not just a one-off. This idea of female strength challenging power, it seems central to her.
Definitely. And that's important, right? It shows she was intentional. She used her art to explore these ideas, to maybe offer a different perspective on women's roles.
Makes you think about her legacy. How does the art world see her today?
It's a great question. Because for a long time, she was pretty much overlooked. Sometimes even her paintings got misattributed to her father or other male artists.
Like she was erased.
Pretty much. But in recent decades, there's been this resurgence of interest. especially in feminist art history circles.
Like rediscovering a lost voice.
Exactly. And now she's seen as a major figure in the Baroque, not just as a woman, but as a master of the style, period.
It's amazing how she's gone from being overshadowed to being celebrated. But taking a step back from the paintings themselves, what's the takeaway for us? What does this all mean?
For me, it's a reminder that art can challenge, it can spark conversations, it can give us new ways of seeing the world. And Artemisia, her work, her story, they show us that one voice, even in the face of huge obstacles, can make a difference. And sometimes those voices that are silenced, they end up being the loudest.
That's powerful. And it gets me thinking, if Judith was her way to reclaim power, what other stories are hidden in art? What other artists have used their work to, maybe not always intentionally, but to grapple with personal stuff, injustice, just the whole human experience?
That's a great question. And not just for historical art, right? Think about contemporary stuff, too.
So to our listeners, here's a challenge. As you explore art, remember Artemisia. Go beyond the surface, the pretty picture. Think about the artists, their motivations, the context.
You might be surprised by what you discover, the connections you make.
This has been an amazing journey. Thanks for coming along for the ride. It's just amazing to think her art, Artemisia's, it was dismissed, even attributed to men for so long. And now it's inspiring all these new artists, scholars, everyone.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate the power of, looking back at history with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
going beyond those traditional stories and giving a voice to the people who were, well, kind of pushed to the side.
And it makes you wonder, right, how many other Artemisias are out there just waiting for us to rediscover them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, art history, it's not static. New research, new perspectives, and, the willingness to question what we think we know.
Yeah.
That's how we uncover these incredible stories.
Speaking of stories, this deep dive into Artemisia's world has been a real journey. We started with Judith Beheading Holofernes' one painting, but it's opened up so much more. Her life, her struggles, her innovations, the whole legacy.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
How one artwork can hold so much meaning. And with Artemisia, it goes way beyond just the technical skill, the biblical scene.
Exactly. We've seen how she used her art to process her trauma, to challenge how women were seen, to really explore power, agency, all of it. And she did it within this Baroque style. But at the same time, she was pushing those boundaries, making it her own.
That's what makes her so fascinating. She wasn't just talented. She was a trailblazer, defying expectations, making a statement with her work.
Before we wrap up, there's something I've been thinking about. We talked about how Judith Beheading Holofernes might have been, cathartic for her, but it makes me wonder about other artists throughout history.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? Are there other artists who used their work, maybe even subconsciously, to work through their own stuff? Struggles, injustices, just the whole human experience.
I mean, it's a really interesting question. And I think, yeah, absolutely. Art's always been this powerful way to express yourself, to deal with emotions, to try and understand the world,
So maybe we shouldn't just look at art for its beauty, its technique. We should also think about the artist, their story, what they were going through, the whole picture.
Definitely. Every piece of art has a story. And often those stories are really personal, really complex. Like with Artemisia and Judith, they can give us a glimpse into the artist's, their soul, their struggles, what they overcame.
So to everyone listening, here's a final thought. Keep this in mind as you explore art. Look deeper. Think about the artist's life, the history, the emotions woven into the brushstrokes, the sculpture, whatever it is.
You might just find hidden stories, personal journeys, a deeper understanding of what it means to be human.
This has been an incredible journey, exploring art, history, and the spirit of Artemisia Gentileschi. Thanks for joining us.